You're listening to the Kaizen Podcast, episode number 2. Today we are talking about blockchain outsourcing. So let's get started. Hey everybody, Fabian from Kaizen Softworks here. Welcome to the Kaizen Podcast. Thanks for coming. The Kaizen Podcast is produced every 2 weeks for your enjoyment. Show notes and links are found at podcast.kcsoftworks.com. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed, iTunes, Stitch, and Spotify. You can also follow me on Twitter at KCFabi. Now, let's get into the show. So I'm here today with Omar Saadoun. He's the Chief Commercial Officer of InMind IT Solutions. He lives here in Uruguay, but he's French, in fact. So, welcome to the show, Omar.
Thanks, Fabian. It's right, I'm French, and we just won the World Cup.
You're very happy about that, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
also, you won the World Cup, and you are here in Uruguay. How is that?
Yeah, well, it's a funny story. I'm here since I have 5 years old. My mother is from Uruguay, my father is from Algeria, but he's French, and both they met at France, and they get married and they have me, and suddenly we're living big here in Uruguay. I don't know really why, but
Things about life, right?
yeah, exactly, and really I love Uruguay. I was a little bit sad when Uruguay didn't
How
win
old were you when you come, you said?
5 years.
5 years.
5 years old. 87. Yeah.
And how old are you right now?
You don't have to ask.
You're young.
Yeah, man, 36 right now.
All right.
Yeah.
So, okay, and tell me a little bit about InMind, what you do there, how many years does the company has?
Well, we've been in business for the last 10 years.
Wow.
I was around software like almost 15 years. I started really young with some coding.
What was your first job?
My first job was to work freelance with the first HTML pages with a website for education. That was around the 2000. Yeah, a lot of years ago. Before that, I started to play with QBasic. I don't know if you
Don't
know
remember.
about that comes with
QBasic?
Yeah, QBasic.
Don't
That's one of the first visual version of Basic that
Okay.
comes with the MS-DOS.
All right.
Maybe version
Exciting.
5. Yeah, really old stuff. I'm old school, yeah. So that was my first approach to programming, and I started to love that and
Cool.
started to study about that, and here I am. System engineers and working on software so far.
And so InMind has 10 years, and what has been InMind doing?
Well, we have a long story working with different technology and platforms. We started working for other companies that were bigger than us, and where they needed
How
some,
big?
maybe 200 employees or more.
Okay.
We have some
And
examples.
how many are you?
Now we have around 10 people fixed. We work also with freelancer and other companies.
Okay.
We are thinking more about work on the business, because most of the InMind history was working on programming specifically, and now we are focusing on creating new business and developing business. So our focus is there, and we try to work with partners to create all the software part.
And
Now
do you
we-
have any specialization, technology?
Yes, actually we have on mobile right now. We were working on mobile for the last 6-7 years almost, and now we have added some blockchain technologies to our
Which is the main topic
expertise.
today.
Exactly. We were working like almost 2 years now on
2 years
blockchain.
working on blockchain.
Yeah.
How do you get into blockchain? What attracted to you to get into blockchain?
Well, at first I started to hear about blockchain, and I didn't have a clue about that, but I started to see
Does
everybody.
anybody has?
Yeah, now there is more people that knows about that, but still there is a lot of information that is missing or misunderstood. So I started to see that most of the people were talking about blockchain, but most of the people didn't have real clue about that and how that could be impacting the actual technology, that if it's something that will be changing everything or not. So that's takes my attention. I started to dig in and to explore, and even if I'm working more on the commercial side, on the business side of software, I can't take away from that little child that was working on programming, and I still having that. So I started to do some tests and some trials, and
Always learning.
yeah, exactly.
So you have an article on LinkedIn. I read it. It was really good. You were talking about blockchain there. We all know that this is one of the most disruptive technologies of the moment. And why don't we start from the beginning? What can you tell us what blockchain is?
Great. Yeah, I love it. Well, blockchain is a special technology that allows to keep like a ledger, like the ledger for taking the counting nodes, where they have some specific characteristics. You can't add something to that ledger, but you can't erase it or you can change it. You're only able to add more information, and that's something that is really different from what we have before that, because we have databases, we have shared databases, distributed databases, but we didn't have anything like a database that can't be edited even if you have administrator rights. So because somebody could be asking, well, I can have a database with only access from
Is it
from
is
an
it like
administrator.
something to avoid corruption, for example?
Yes, there is a couple of keywords that appears every time that we talk about blockchain. Is transparency, is immutability, is trust. That's some aspect that appears. Also, difficult or even impossible to hack. Yeah, and that's something that we can see on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is is the first implementation of a blockchain
So the security
technology.
that blockchain can give to the people is one of the key things that makes blockchain attractive, right?
Yes, really attractive because it's really hard to hack. So far it's impossible. So far it's impossible. But we are going to talk maybe later about
Yeah, I will ask
technology.
something related to that.
And the distribution that you can achieve with blockchain is unthinkable with other technologies or other platforms. So you have a really great decentralization, a real decentralization of thousands of servers around the globe.
Does anybody can have one of those servers, or how is it?
Yes, actually anybody could have one. You can have your own node for Bitcoin. You can have your own node for Ethereum, an example. You can have it. You can start to be part of that community. That's one kind of blockchain. That's open blockchain, or yeah, that's the best word to describe it.
Now that you name some cryptocurrencies, why is Bitcoin so tied into it? Are they the same? They are the same. So how can you split the difference to the audience?
Well, Bitcoin is an implementation of blockchain. Blockchain is a concept, is a technology, it's a way how it's built. It's not one specific blockchain. Bitcoin is one construction over a blockchain technology.
Right.
So a Bitcoin node will have all the characteristic of a blockchain and specific to Bitcoin. You could have another cryptocurrency, or you could have even blockchain technology without cryptocurrencies. So that's other blockchains technology, the other implementation of blockchain.
And I read in your blog that blockchain has some basic characteristics, and you already named a few. You said distributed data, security, inalterability, consensus, traceability. Why can you tell us a little more about these areas?
Well, mainly the first and more important thing is how this chain is built. You have that word blockchain, that composition of word, and that's the beginning of this stuff of blockchain. Everything starts with some transactions around. I could take Bitcoin for example, is a great example for that. you have a group of transactions around different nodes, and you have something that has to process those transactions. We could name that a miner, an example. That miner will we will search for transactions without block, will mount a block, and that could be the first block of the chain. Once I have that block, I will hash it. I don't want to be too technical on this, but I will have a footprint for only that could be generated by this block and only this block with those transactions. The way we are going to build that hash, that's one of the interesting aspects you may heard about the proof of work and something that consumes a lot of powers. Yeah, well, that's a way, an interesting and really interesting way to ensure that the person that made that block and added it to the blockchain has really done that job. Because this is open. Everybody could have the source code of Bitcoin and could have his own node. So why they could change the source code? There is nobody that could avoid that. So this proof of work is the best way to ensure that a miner is doing his work on adding a real block to the blockchain. So that's take us to the consensus. There is a way that every block around, every node that could be around will be checking that work has been done by a real miner. And if there is any other chain around willing to be added to the blockchain, they have like two versions of that. They will choose what's the longest to add it and make it the real chain.
And what about traceability? I understand that, for example, if I made a change in the blockchain, one of these blocks, I could track back all the history. For example, when talking about Bitcoin, those Bitcoins, where they come from in the past and all the transactions related to them. Is that something related to that? How is it?
Yes, it's related because with the possibility that you can't change anything from the blockchain. Once that some transactions are in the blockchain, once they are validated, nobody could change that. Nobody could erase that. It's impossible to change that. So you will always have a traceability from the 0 day, from today to today, with all transactions that have been done.
I could look to every transaction.
Every transaction. They are all there, and every node has it. That's another interesting thing, because you have distribution, but that distribution is not a copy. When I make a new node, if I start with my computer a new node, I will not download the last copy. I will download all the list of transactions since the first day and the first transaction.
Right.
So, and those transactions will be processed again with all the rules and all the mistakes that have been done with the chain.
But can I create a new blockchain and start from zero, or how does it work?
You could actually.
But probably nobody will trust it, right? Or how does it work?
I have. It's not my description, but it's a great description. Blockchain is like a fax. It's like the fax concept. If I have one fax machine, it's useless. But if I have a million fax machines, I have a communication way. With Bitcoin and blockchain and every crypto that could be around, it's the same thing. A crypto is interesting, or a blockchain is interesting when you have many parties around. Because you have somebody that will be trusting on that info and will be using that place to share information and to be sure that information is real and add more information. If not, information or the node.
If nobody uses that, it makes sense to start using.
Yeah, exactly. So
to be sure that it's like the network effect, right?
Yes.
Something kind of.
Yes. So there is new blockchains every day. Every time we hear about a new crypto, it's really there is a lot of probability that the new crypto will be done by a blockchain technology. That's what we do hope, at least, because that's one way to give trust to the user of that crypto. And you could have even other blockchain technology around but it depends on how many users you have over that. If Ethereum, that is the other blockchain platform that has interesting things more than Bitcoin, you have the possibility to run some small programs over Ethereum. If Ethereum only has 10 users, it's not interesting. But if you have a million users around and maybe 3,000, 10,000 nodes, you have a network, you have a place, and you have a community behind that.
Right. So, and you said it is impossible to hack this thing, and you talked about a lot of things that make you believe this is really, really secure, and you make sure about it. But how is it possible when we talk about, for example, Bitcoin, that every once in a while there's a case when a hacker steals millions of dollars of cryptocurrency? What are your thoughts on this? How is it possible that companies get hacked in this blockchain network, and anything that they have to do to reduce this risk?
There is a risk, and it is because to access your wallet for Bitcoin, example, you need two things. You need to have a private key and a public key. When you are going to send me money or Bitcoin, you will need my public key. That's what everybody could see on the transaction.
Mm-hmm.
But when I have to send you money, and also if you want to send me that, you will need the private key. It's like the way you sign the transaction.
Okay.
If I have your private key, I have access to your funds.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it's like you have the password for your banking account.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. But if you lose that, there is no way to there is nobody, no central entity where to knock the door and say, I have lost my private key. You are gone. The money is gone, the crypto is gone. There is no way to retrieve that. That's why it's so difficult to hack, because the only way is having your private key. What happens is that when you have like exchange outside, the exchange is outside the Bitcoin network, and they have 2-3 private keys, and they have stored somewhere. And most of the time, hackers try a way to
They store the private key for simplicity of the user,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, for the yeah.
So you don't have to remember it.
Exactly. Sometimes they store your private key. Sometimes they store their own private key, and you don't have a real private key. You have a private key for the exchange. Mm-hmm. So they still exchange because it's easier, and they have to manage how to steal the keys of the exchange, and they are still in the exchange, not the Bitcoin blockchain.
Oh, okay.
And for attacking a Bitcoin blockchain, you need what is called like a 50 plus one attack. Bitcoin is made, and every blockchain is made like that, by nodes. And you need more than a half of the nodes to make one block of transactions real. Mm-hmm. You need to have that consensus, and that consensus could be done by majority. So you have to hack more than a half of the blockchain network to make it think that you have the real chain, and that's the way you could be hacking. But there is an interesting stuff. The proof of work is made by a way that you need at least 10 minutes to process only one block. So imagine that you have to hack, let's say, 1,000 blocks. There is no way. No way. That's something that is really interesting. There is a long stuff. There is a lot of stuff about how much power you need to process all the transaction and the ecological stuff, etc. But that's the main reason of how difficult it is to hack the Bitcoin blockchain or the Bitcoin.
So when you hear in the news that 25 million got stolen of cryptocurrency, it is wrong to say that blockchain was hacked.
Exactly.
The truth is that the exchange was hacked, right?
The exchange was hacked. They find a
it's
way
important.
to
I think that it's important that the people get to understand that really well, because maybe sometimes people, the majority of the people are is not so tech savvy, could get confused and have the wrong impression of what the blockchain benefits could be, and not because an exchange made something wrong about security and got stolen.
Yeah, usually it's that is exchange that have some issue for the programming or the software that we are using to send a transaction, that they have a bug, and that bug could lead to stole funds.
So, talking about learning about blockchain, and you were talking about how you get into it. A couple days ago, we were talking about how all these events about blockchain always get to the same about what is blockchain and all that stuff. So, what can you recommend everybody out there that wants to get their hands into blockchain? How to start with it? Where they should start learning?
Well, that's not an easy question because you have to read a lot at 1st. You have to understand.
It is pretty complex, right?
Yes, it's complex. You have a lot of guides that make the job easier. But I think that the most important is to understand what you can't take from that technology, and that needs to be more in depth with the main stuff about blockchain. An example, blockchain isn't something that will change all the systems that we know. It's not like blockchain will change how we build software, not for now at least. But blockchain will add some trust, and will make some business easier, and will add some decentralization to business that today are totally centralized. That's why Bitcoin was so exciting and they have so many success, because there is a lot of people that doesn't have a way to be on a bank or having a bank account. They have no way, and those people now they have a way to have like credit. So you have something decentralized that gives the trust to two people, to two persons, or both parties, that could be having a transaction, a monetary transaction with a cryptocurrency that is not in a bank.
And anywhere in the world.
Anywhere. So that's one thing that we have to understand how it works. Because maybe I'm doing a monetary transaction or a crypto transaction, but I could be doing another kind of transaction, another kind of asset.
Going a little back to the learning, and if you had to name one source of information to learn about blockchain, which one would that be?
Yeah, I try to avoid that. I'm not sure that there is only one source of information. When
I'm not saying that you just need to just look at just one, but maybe which one helped you the most?
I started to learn about I didn't start to learn about Bitcoin at first. I go there a little bit before. After I started to see about Ethereum, because of their way to run code with the same characteristic than Bitcoin blockchain. You can have code there running that you can't change. So I started to work there and to understand how it is and how it works. There is a lot of community behind that, and you aren't so deep in the trading world, because here you have like two big worlds. You have the trading part, and they don't know or they don't want to know much about the programming part, and you have all the part that is the real technology of blockchain and all the programs that you can do. That's why I started to learn about Ethereum first, and there is a lot of guides about that. It's like the first thing I will do is to go to Google and Ethereum blockchain, first steps and guidelines and something like that.
Read every blog you can.
Yes, there is a lot of like the first thing that you need to know about Ethereum, and that's interesting to understand what kind of business are around that, because you have even communities behind that and they have made some business on the Ethereum blockchain. So that's an interesting place to start if you don't have a clue about.
And I just say other businesses. What are the other uses about blockchain? So we know that one of the main ones probably is these cryptocurrencies, but what other uses has blockchain? I also hear about smart contracts. I don't know how much that has to do with businesses or what's the use of them. Are they related? Are they not?
There is a relation. The cryptocurrency has a lot of made a lot of noise when Bitcoin goes to 18,000. I guess something like that last year. So there is a lot of people doing a lot of money, and that bring a lot of attention. But that's only one part. You have the other part that's, for me, is the part that will be changing, really changing the world. And there is a way to program a contract, like the same contract you used to do with customers when you say that I'm going to make this work for you and you are going to pay me this amount of money. If I don't know, if I make an app, I will store it on the Apple Store and the Google Play Store. So you have a way to check that this app was deployed, and if that's been done, automatically the money will go to your account. That is something that you do every day by a contract that you have to execute manually. You have to call your customer, tell him, hey, I already make this app, you have to pay me now. And the customer will say, let me check if the app is really there. So I can program that in a smart contract. I can have it on a blockchain. Nobody could change that. Nobody will change those conditions. You can even have like a deadline. If I don't achieve that deadline to send the app to the App Store, you have a discount from 10%. So those rules that I could make on a contract, a written contract, I can program that and make it on the blockchain, and that will be executed automatically without any interaction from a human.
And those are smart contracts.
Those are smart contracts. So everything that could trigger some actions could be done on a smart contract.
Nice, really interesting.
It's an interesting way to make transparency to our contracts. When I have to sell a car, I have to, I don't know, transfer any asset that could be going from one hand to another.
So pretty much blockchain could affect every business out there.
It could.
Every industry.
It could, but for good. It could.
No, yeah, right. Of course.
Because
we hope so.
yeah, of course, but there is a lot of fear about how it's going to change the work of the people, because you have notaries that have been working on that kind of stuff, and suddenly you have a technology that, hey, why I will need notary for that? Yeah, we still need notaries.
They are probably worried about that.
Yeah, they are worried, but we still need them because I have to validate that process.
For advice.
Yeah, I for advice, but also to prove that process, that blockchain, that smart contract is for good, it's real, it's okay, it's trustable.
So let's move a little to the main topic of blockchain outsourcing. And let's start by the beginning again. Why somebody will outsource something to a company anywhere in the world, but also to a company in Uruguay?
Well, first, because this is a real new technology. There is a lot of things that needs to be researched. You need to do a lot of research and understand how this could impact in your business. What do you need to achieve a new blockchain, to use that blockchain? And that is something that will change. I think that if you have a business, your core will be to maintain your business working, and this is replacing or
invested time, a lot of money, research.
Yeah.
I don't know how many months that would take me, but if I hire a third party that could do that work for me, even a company that is already working on that, that's an advantage, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that would be the first thing that came to my head. After we have that is a technology that is working all around the globe, but you have places where there is more attraction to start on blockchain technology, and this is something that is happening right now. So if you have to build all that knowledge, that will take some time, so it's easier
Of course.
for your business
And
start.
why Uruguay, for example?
And Uruguay has, and that's maybe one of the things I like from here. We have, I'm also Uruguayan, so we have an interesting way to learn a lot of software. We have a tradition of software, and blockchain isn't something that is out of that, because you have several companies that are working and understanding blockchain. You have companies that are making their own products over blockchain. You have an ecosystem working on cryptocurrencies. You have many lines of work around blockchain right now.
So you have talent available to scale your business if needed, related to the blockchain expertise you find in the talent pool?
Well, that's something that we have to work, but on all the software industry here in Uruguay. We have a really small population. We have great talent, but we are very few. So, and that's something not only for Uruguay, but specifically in blockchain is everybody's problem. There is very few talent on blockchain all around the world. So that's interesting, and why here in Uruguay we already have that talent working. We are few, but we have great talent working on blockchain.
Okay. What level of knowledge a company that wants to outsource their blockchain projects, uh, uh, what level of knowledge on blockchain should they have to outsource to you? Um, because I can imagine that certain amount of knowledge they still need to have to understand what you are going to talk about and to transmit what they want from it. Am I right, or is it okay if I don't know anything and I just want, hey, I want to use blockchain? Tell me how.
It's a great question. I'm glad that you asked it for. I just wrote last week a new article around that topic, and everybody's looking for a blockchain, and nobody really knows if they need a blockchain for their business. So there is like a hyphen about the blockchain technology that will help us to get funding and stuff like that. But anyway, the first thing I will ask to that customer is if they are sure that they need a blockchain, and maybe they don't know how to respond that. So there is a couple of keywords that are important to know if a blockchain could help me. One of those are if I need, I am an intermediary for anything. Am I having some asset that could be tokenized? That's tokenized is to have a representation, a virtual representation of a real asset. Do I need to have transparency on my transactions? Do I have to be trusted for the transactions I'm making? That's some of the keywords.
Good question.
That you can make if you are answering yes to one or two.
To start understanding if you need it.
Yeah. So that's the first thing. I have like 4 questions that could help any customer to know if their business could be attained or could be helped by a blockchain technology.
And what kind of projects are you currently involved with blockchain and InMind?
Well, we started like everybody. We started with some proof of concept, starting to understand the technology, how it works, how much time it takes to create something. You have some characteristic that could lead to hard times because there is code that you can't alter. Once you have programmed it, you can't alter it, and you have to deploy a new version. somewhere else. You can update. So you have interesting stuff to understand, to get the time to develop. So we started to it was called a medical wallet. That was our first project. The idea behind that was to give the power of having the information, the real power of controlled information about your clinic history. So I could decide what doctor could have my information. I could decide to who to share my information and when. That's one of the first projects we made.
It's interesting because that's I can imagine if you have your medical history on blockchain, nobody could alter or hack, like we were saying, my clinical history, which is really, really important for everybody, right?
Yes, exactly. When I talk about that case, I talk about the Michael Jackson death and all the things that are behind, because they have Michael Jackson has a doctor and they are not sure if he was drugged, he was poisoned, what was the story.
There were doubts.
But he was adding a lot of stuff on the medical history, and hey, everybody could pay to somebody or the administrator a lot of money and say, let's change those database rows.
Right. Because it's so simple to alter a database.
Yeah, you only need the access. On blockchain, even if you have the access, you can alter it.
Something that happens,
it's
there.
Yeah, it's there.
That's great. Another project you're working?
Yes, lastly we have been working, and that's like a top secret, but I will.
What can you tell us?
I will tell only that we have been working, doing a satellite API to process and send files over a satellite, working with Bitcoin and some smart contracts around.
Cool.
Yeah, cool stuff. Really hard to do, but really
if only
stuff.
Blockchain wasn't hard, adding satellite was something easy.
You know, the satellite part was really easy. yeah.
Right. And your customers, where are they from?
Our customer right now, most of them are in United States.
Nice, cool. So they are taking advantage of the time zone difference. Where are they exactly? Are they on the East Coast, West Coast?
We have coast to coast right now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. That makes some troubles because I have to stay up some hours. But,
why?
Well, because I have
because in fact with West Coast we have
3-4
hours difference, and East Coast we only have one.
Yes, but I have some customer in Switzerland, and that's
that's another story.
Yeah. I didn't mention that, but yeah.
Yeah, but with the United States, it's pretty easy to work.
Yeah, United States.
We share a lot of the office hours.
Yes, exactly.
And so that's nearshore blockchain outsourcing, right? That's really, really good to hear that URI is working on that. And that's something you don't hear a lot here. I think we already covered this, but what other industries do you think blockchain will disrupt in the near future, near upcoming years?
I think that's pretty personal, but I think that the banking industry has been changing without the banks, because you have a lot of countries that has a lot of population without a banking account, and now they have a way to have credit, and to have a credit history and a banking history on the blockchain. So that's something that is happening with or without our knowledge, or at least the bank knowledge. I think that all the finance industry will be hit by the blockchain. There is a lot of use cases, really interesting, that could take a lot of advantage from blockchain technology. They are working on that between banks, because you have a lot of things going on when you send a transaction. When you are sending money, you have a lot of validation. When you send a check, you have a lot of validation that has to be made between banks, and that's a way to have the trust that that little paper that you send or that wire transaction are actually good and they have funds to cover it, because you have to trust on that.
Right.
And blockchain has that trust by design. So if you have a transaction that say that this guy has enough money to pay that transaction, that's true.
So and you told me that you're working with a healthcare company for the medical wallet. This other company which we don't know too much besides the satellites. So I guess maybe they are a telco. I don't know. Now you mentioned banks. So are you specialized? Is InMind specialized in a vertical, or can you work with any company, for example, from the United States that wants to outsource some blockchain project, and can you just take care of it?
That's a tricky question, because yes, we have a lot of experience from our past working with banks, so we know how it works behind that, and that experience leave us a lot of knowledge, not only about a specific vertical, but a knowledge about technology. Right now, we are focusing on blockchain technologies combined with mobile technologies. But I could say that we are working on one specific vertical. We have a lot of knowledge from our background, but we're still finding what is our vertical right now.
Cool.
So far we are working on blockchain technology. My approach to that is that it's not a vertical, it's a technology that in like 2 or 3 years will be, I don't know if a commodity yet, but there will be more people working on blockchain, so it won't be something so new. My work is to find and or define that vertical where we are going to work. Right now we are working on different projects and we are doing really well. So we have all our reviews and reference from our customer that talk for us.
That's important. How do you typically sell these services on blockchain? Do you use time and materials, fixed price? What's the typical agreement?
We have both. The last project was fixed price, because usually our customer has a budget that they want to use for that research. There is really few projects that are fully live on blockchain technology yet. That's a good thing, because there's
still a lot of experimentation.
Yes, exactly. There is a lot of experimentation. So they want to try things, to see if there is a business, to see how it works, and they have budget for that. And usually we are working on mainly fixed price for those kinds of projects. Sometimes we have to add more features, and that's the moment that we start to work on more time and materials.
And for a company like InMind, that you are 10 people, right? You said that. Okay. So how is the team composition? Suppose that I'm a company, I come to you, and I want to outsource my blockchain project. Which team members will I see involved? What are the roles of them? Are you involved in every project? How does it work?
Well, to make it short, usually I'm involved at first, because I'm the guy that you will be finding to give you that solution that you need. And we are going to give you like a project manager that will be the next the way to interact and to have every day's
like a synchronization.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you will have one point of communication.
Okay.
And we do the rest. That's the way we try to do these things. I have to be honest, we work with many partners, we care about the entire business, and we don't want our customers to deal with different developers or the designer. I do all that work for you. I
provide just the solution to them.
Yes, exactly.
Right. It doesn't matter how it works behind the scenes.
If you have to care about how it works, it's because I'm not doing my work in a good way. So normally you don't have to know about what is happening behind, what is done under the hood.
Okay. So you mentioned it also Switzerland, but still United States. Am I okay if I assume that your main market is the United States? Do you travel to United States? Do you get to meet with your customers? Does the rest of the team also travels? What can you tell me in that aspect?
Well, United States is our main focus right now. We have been working with Switzerland because of my knowledge of French, and yes, that's one of the main reasons. We had some projects during the last years with France and Switzerland, but our main focus is on United States. That's where all our commercial work is done. Is where we travel.
And how often do you go there?
We try to travel like 2-3 times at least a year. We could be traveling. We should be traveling more maybe next year.
Okay.
So
Do you go to conferences about blockchain there?
yes, last time I was in many meetups. I missed the consensus. I have to go there next year. That's consensus is the main event
On blockchain?
on blockchain
Where
of
is
the
it?
world. I don't remember last time. It was in New York last time.
Is it always in New York or do they rotate?
I don't remember.
Yeah,
I
no
think
worries.
I think so. I
I
think
was
so.
good with that.
That is the main event of blockchain in the world. Is the consensus.
Okay, so to start wrapping up, probably my final question. How do your customers pay for your services? Do you accept Bitcoin?
Not right now.
What?
Yeah, not right now. Yeah.
You don't trust?
I trust, yes, but I have to pay salaries on dollars or Uruguayan pesos yet. So
And the tricks of getting the money out and
yes,
all
yes,
that part.
that's something that we have to work. We still have to work on how change cryptos to fiat. That's the name of the.
Do you
current
have
money.
that question already? Did any of your customers
Yes.
already ask that?
Yes, they used to ask that, and my first answer was I would like, but I still need to pay salaries with fiat.
So okay,
yeah.
what's the normal way of paying?
The
for
normal
services?
way is wire transfer.
Uh-huh.
We will work with banks, sometimes directly, sometimes through a wire transfer on a company on the States, and that's the way we are working. We are getting paid.
Cool. All right, so I think I already asked you about what you thought about the future, but I think it was more about the verticals on the industries that will get disrupted. So I want to ask this question maybe again. What do you think the blockchain future has for us in the upcoming 5 to 10 years? Did it come to stay, and how strong?
Excellent question. I think it's going to stay. I think that we are going to see during the next year and a half, maybe 2 years, like a filtering from all the noise that we heard about blockchain. There is a lot of business that ain't doing nothing about blockchain, but they say something like chain. So there is a time that we need to purge all those cases, all those works that are being done to grab money. That's the story. But I think that blockchain is here to stay. You have really big actors around that. You have IBM with the Linux Foundation working on their own
Wow.
on their own platform, on their own blockchain platform that is called Hyperledger, that also have the same concept about open source, open code, community working on that, and that's another kind of blockchain. It's a permissioned blockchain. So you have big actors around that, and usually when you have big actors, it's because it's going to stay. That's what I think. You will have more and more use cases over blockchain.
Good. Well, all right. Like Bugs Bunny says, that's all, folks. Thanks, Omar, for joining us today. Thanks a lot for your time to share your thoughts on blockchain outsourcing.
Well, thank you. Thanks to you, Fabian. It was great. It's a pleasure to me to talk about this and talk about technology in general, but it's something that I'm really passionate about, and I think that it's going to change our life for good.
Thanks everyone for listening to the Kaizen podcast. This podcast has been brought to you by Kaizen Softworks. Check us out at kcsoftworks.com.